Anyways, hey there, and welcome to another Nerdy Reviews. I'm the Absolute Nerd, but you can also call me Zaku. And today, we're going to be reviewing Gundam Reconguista in G. Now, before I begin with anything with this review, let me just give you this quick little spiel here. If you are watching this on Twitch, make sure to follow me on my Twitch channel. If you're watching on YouTube, please like the video, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment down below. I want to hear something from you guys. Let me know what you guys think about my opinion on the show, or what you thought about the show in general. Did it suck? Was it awesome? Was I right? Was I wrong? Tell me what you think down below. That said, let's go ahead and begin with the review. So, like I do with all my reviews so far, let me just start off with the story at the moment here. I'm sorry here. I got my mind kind of lost. I'm like, what is it? Oh, the Capital Guard. There's so many factions in this series, and I'll get that in a little bit too, but there's so many factions, I'm trying to remember who's who and what's what, and it throws everything off. But okay, again, with the story, we are done with the UC century, but we're still in the UC timeline, roughly 1,000 years after the end of the UC timeline, or UC century, sorry. And we are in the Reguild century, 1014, after a space pirate attack on a space elevator. Capital Guard trainee Bellary here is drawn into a conflict between Earth and space forces. That is the basic gist of this. It gets a little bit more complex and convoluted. I'm going to try and give you guys a lot of info without spoiling the entire series for you guys. So, some fun factors about, I'm going to call it Reconguista G. I don't want to call it Gundam. Reconguista G is just too blah of a name. Or Rico G. Rico G. Let's call it Rico G. Rico G is a 26-episode series that was originally released and created in 2014. This is actually a well-known series, not because of for what it is, but what it had brought back. Yoshiyuki Tomino, the grandfather of Real Robot, returns to the Gundam franchise after a 15-year hiatus. From what I can understand here, the last series, and I'm saying series specific, that he did in the Gundam franchise was back in 1999 with Turn A Gundam. Funny enough, this will be something I'll be reviewing right after Rico G. Now, with Rico G, it's got some fun things right here, alongside with the return of Yoshiyuki Tomino to not only write, but direct this series. We also get some returning people from previous Gundam series as well. One thing I want to kind of talk about is a little bit of the animation here. Let me show you guys a little something too from the series itself. The series animation's not entirely bad. It's actually really good animation. I would say it's very fluid and very modern-esque looking. Granted, it is a 2014 series, so it's going to be looking just like most modern 2010s plus series. The animation though looks kind of familiar at points in times. When I was watching it, too bad I don't have any screenshots of the buildings or anything like that. The closest I would get is what I have for mechs or what I could pull online. But the animation very much felt like a Studio Ghibli animation, like something from a Studio Ghibli film. A lot of the architecture and structures has that Ghibli whimsical look. I would even say the same thing with the character expressions and faces. You can't really tell, obviously, in these screenshots here, but there's some expressions where they got really wide mouths or reactions. Kind of reminds me of Ponyo, for an example. I bring this up, though, because funny enough, an animator from Studio Ghibli actually worked on the character designs here that we're seeing right now. And forgive me, I'm mispronouncing his name here. It's Kenichi Yoshida. Now, he had previously actually worked with Tomino here on the last Gundam series that they worked on together, which was Turn A Gundam. He also did the character designs for that, too, which, oddly enough, and I'm still kind of watching Turn A at the moment here, the character designs and the designs and everything else look very much the same, but there's a lot more liveliness here with the characters. We can't see it. Again, I don't have great screenshots, but we get a lot of liveliness with our characters in this series. A lot of facial expressions, a lot of that Ghibli whimsical kind of look. really fits a lot with the series aesthetics and overall. In addition to that, too, the music in this series is not that bad for the most part. Actually, there's always like kind of like that main theme or theme song that kind of goes out throughout the entire series. Again, I use that word whimsical, and that's the best way I can describe it. It feels very whimsical, very fantastical, almost festival like. We hear that oftentimes throughout the entire series. We do get other types of music, but even with that kind of music, it kind of feels like a Zelda whimsy, if that makes sense. Like the battle music that you would hear in battle sequences, like if you play any modern Zelda games, like Ocarina of Time onward, you would kind of get that like, or not orchestral, but kind of like a festival-esque with orchestral kind of music. That's the best way I can describe it. Again, fits the tone and atmosphere of this series overall. So trying to stay positive, and it's kind of hard because I started us off. I sound very positive about the series, and this is all the good things I really have to say about the series. The looks, the music, the atmosphere is very pleasant, very nice. Whimsical is the key word here. I will also say that the series also does a lot of nods towards the Universal Century, so keep in mind that this is a series that was made 15 years after Turn A Gundam. Turn A Gundam was considered the final Gundam series. Like, if you could watch all the Gundam series, the entire Gundam franchise, if you're going to end it off on one, you're going to end it off on Turn A Gundam, because that's going to tie everything together and somehow pop it back into Turn A. There is controversy between Turn A Gundam and Gundam Rico. I will cover that in a separate stream or video, but for right now, we're just going to talk about Rico G. And specifically with Rico G, because it's taking place so many years later in real time, not what we're talking about in the series or franchise-wise, timeline-wise too. They do quite a bit of harkening back to the Universal Century, making direct references to the Universal Century. There was mentioning of new types a couple of times, and there were a couple of shots of seeing like old areas or whatnot, semi-spoilers, like coming across a old entry point into Jaburo and seeing like rusted Zagox or Zox. Yeah, Zagox. Sorry, Zagox. But yeah, that was pretty much it. I mean, it kind of ties it in with the Universal Century, but not by a whole lot. The next somewhat positive thing I want to talk about is the action in this series. Considering that this is kind of like a Turn A alike series, there's a lot of action. Almost every single episode there is not without action, which is actually a big positive going for this series. A lot of the action is fun. I wouldn't say it's really intense. I would say it's more interesting to watch. Definitely fun though. The only issues I have with some of the fights is what ties it along with the convoluted plot lines and the characters, and I'll get to that, but sticking to just the fights alone, they're fun. They're enjoyable. I do have to say, though, with the main titular mobile suit, I can't say titular because it's not in the title of the series, but the G-Self, oftentimes because we have different backpacks for it, reminds me a lot like the Ale Strike from the Seed series. You can almost say the same thing with certain other suits from other series as well. But I felt like some of the fights can be kind of gimmicky at times because the G-Self has, again, multiple backpacks, from the Reflector backpack to a Tricky backpack to an Assault backpack, a Space backpack, a Perfect backpack. You kind of get what I'm saying. A lot of those fights tend to be very gimmicky around that particular backpack. Some of them we don't even see again at all. So it's like, okay, they were kind of like a fun one-off. Was it successful? Was it going to be any good? Was anything going to come out of it? I shrug, and that's going to bring me to my next part about this entire series. And I'm trying to be very nice to this series because I'll tell you guys, I'm going to be very, very honest with you, is that when I came into Rico G, the first time around I had to watch this series was an absolute travesty of a mess. I do have to say, the second time around, it's a lot better, but not saying by a whole lot. Because the problem is that I remember that when I first impressions of Rico G when I first watched it was this is younger Zaku playing games and doing other things while watching a series that's subtitled only. It was slow at first, and then later on completely an absolute garbled up mess that I could not understand. It was going at like Arrow, like Warner Brothers Arrow series, going at neck breaking speeds with that series. Yeah, it did not leave a pleasant mouth in my taste in my mouth. I did not like the series at all. It was not palpable, and I was like, what was I watching? What's going on here? So that was younger me, right? Coming into this now, again, paying 100% attention to this series, not being disrespectful and how I normally am with other series or movies or whatnot, just like put on television or whatnot. That's it. No. So with the attention here, the problems still persist. It wasn't something that was what I just picked on because I wasn't paying attention. No, there was a serious problem with this series. So the first and biggest thing I want to talk about is the pacing of this series. So Rico G does something kind of interesting. Again, like I mentioned, it's like a Turn A clone almost. The first 13 episodes kind of takes that similar pace that I had seen with Turn A in the past, where it's very story driven or plot driven, and it's very slow and methodical, giving us time with our characters and the story, trying to build everything up, or the mysteries around certain things too. Unlike Turn A, though, we get a lot of action episode by episode by episode. That was kind of nice, though. So everything was just tying in very well, giving some excitement alongside with the intrigue about what's going on, or even the political theater of what's going on in this series. That all changes after the midway point. So I'd say at episode 13, this pace, which was moderately fast but slow still, completely gets to episode 13, and I want to say it really hits by episode 16, and bam! It's like, wait, what was I just watching? Because all of a sudden, from episode 16 all the way to 26, those 10 episodes were at neck-breaking speeds. And it was super odd and weird how that series just took off like that. When it took off like that, it started doing a lot of funny and weird things. And the funny and weird things, I don't know how to put it. It reminds me a lot like other Gundam series or movies, kind of like I would say this more like compilation films in a lot of the Gundam franchise, where they're trying to go so fast and tell a story. And by 16 to 26, we're going at neck-breaking speeds of telling this story, and it's as if Tomino was trying to race and get to the finish line on time, and literally blitzkrieg and just bashes through everything and knocks everything out of its way. And what gets knocked out of the way are a lot of the plot lines, subplot lines, and characters. A lot of this just gets wrecked. Again, I'm trying not to spoil too much, but it's kind of hard. So episodes 1 through 13 kind of builds up this kind of like intrigue or plot about like, the conflict between Earth and space still. And trying to establish some like things about like taboos and what's forbidden in that time frame. After that point, and we kind of get towards episode 13, we get character developments too, but by that point, 16 onward, certain characters, certain plot lines, and definitely the main plot line itself, it's as if it's being shredded out of the book or out of the script and goes like, all right, so this happens. Throw this way. That happens. Oh, that character. Forget that character. Let's move on. Okay, and here we are, and there we are. We're at the end. Awesome. That's the whole entire story. That's what it felt like. So characters like, for an example, I'm going to bring up is, if I'm saying her name correctly, Raria. I can't pronounce. I'm terrible at pronouncing names, or even Japanese names too. Radia Monday is her name. First 13 episodes is a mystery, and then all of a sudden, 16 onward, okay, mystery's revealed, and then she's a completely throwaway character. She's like wallpaper at this point. Nothing amounts to what the reveal was. Our relationships between Bellary, and I don't have a picture of her right now, but Ida, their relationship and everything like that, toss out the window. Their actions and motives between Bellary's and then Ida's, we even get some other characters too, toss that out the window. What about Mask and Manny? I'm naming characters, right? And I'm trying not to spoil too much, but like motivations between characters like this, throw them out the window. We got coups. We got different Reconguistas. Now, for those who don't know, Reconguista, they're trying to do this Spanish terminology like conquest, right? So like a reconquest of Earth. But there's like multiple, they even say it in the series, they're called Reconguistas. They have the operation for Reconguista. But there's multiple Reconguistas and different sides and factions. So at the beginning, again, first 13 episodes, we got 2 factions. And we kind of talk about a third one. We got a little bit introduced into that one. Through 16 to 26, an additional, 2 to 3 more factions show up, from what I can understand here. That's where I'm like saying, like, it got confusing, it got convoluted, and felt very contrived at points, where characters were doing stuff that previously didn't make sense of why they were doing what they're doing. They're being forced into doing it, so it's like it's more of a writer's kind of a choice, kind of a thing. But why? Those sort of things. There are also the hypocrisies within the series itself. So, with the Gundam franchise being infamous for a lot of its core elements and themes that's persistent through the entire franchise, this one tends to contradict itself a lot. Where it's talking about how we can develop as peacetime, but then we're also warlike, and then everyone's calling each other warlike when they're warlike themselves. I'm talking about, like, in specific, like, I call it GIT, but it's the GIT, like G-IT is the name of this one faction, I guess, and they're doing their own Reconguista, or maybe I'm misunderstanding, and I'm paying attention, by the way, I'm paying attention. Maybe they're part of the Reconguista with Towasawaga. I can't pronounce the name of it. This is how confusing it got. It got very confusing, very fast. But it just didn't make sense with why certain things were happening, what was going on, and the actions. And can I just say it's a mess and move on? Aside from all of that, actually, here we go. I do have a picture of Ida right here. I had major problems overall with this series. Is just, again, first half, nicely paced, well enjoyable. A lot of things started making sense. Building up mystery, building up the plot, building up the factions. 16 to 26, throw all that out of the window, basically. We get ideas of factions already existing, and then they introduce more factions that had less screen time than what we originally had between Earth and space. It's just frustrating. Other frustrating things too were like characters themselves. Overall, Aida, who is our main heroine, is what I would guess we would put it. Super frustrating. I mean, we've had other characters, like other pilots, who are absolutely useless or garbage. And I don't like how it's kind of strange about how Tomino writes about like a lot of strong female characters, and then we have a female character who has a pretty good, like an interesting, I'm not pretty good, but an interesting story, and we don't really get much development from her. In fact, everything that develops about her kind of went down but after episode 13. Like everything, just throw her out the window. She's just there. She is a pretty garbage pilot though, which is sad because she pilots a pretty decent looking suit. I can't call it a Gundam really, but it's called the G Arcane. And she's using a sniper unit, but My god, it's like watching a newbie playing a FPS and trying to play sniper for the first time. That's what it's like watching Ida fight for the most part. She's just usually there, kind of causes problems for a lot of people, and doesn't really provide a lot of support. Sometimes she does, but isn't, which is kind of sad. I'm like, can fix this, can get this better, but not really. And then her story doesn't improve. So that's pretty much it. I'm trying not to spoil too much about Rico G. I'm trying to keep these reviews, of interest, but then again, I might want to spoil it for you guys. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot good to say about it because really all the good gets marred by what the bad is. So I'm just going to go ahead and just jump over to our next segment here. One that some of you are already familiar with, which is favorite suits of the series. So for those of you who don't know, with the Gundam franchise, every single Gundam series introduces a brand new set of suits, redesign of suits, battleships, those sort of things. Rico G is no different from any other series. In fact, it's one of the few, no, not few, but one of the many series that brings them a lot of new mechs and designs. Now, keeping in with the Universal Century, I do want to say with the late UC Century suits, a lot of them tend to be uglier designs. Rico G has some pretty, I would say a lot of them are interesting designs, but the other half of the designs are pretty ugly. And they are very reminiscent of suits that you would see like in F91 or in Victory Gundam. Just to show you some examples of these, right? Look at the beef run. This thing is a ugly monstrosity. My god. How it actually moves around is beyond me, but I mean, ugly suit. We are first introduced in the series with the Rectons, which are pretty bland looking, like, box heads. Makes me think of Conti from FLCL at times. Super weird. We also get the, now these are usually like, akin to mobile workers, where they are just suits that are used to do labor work. They do have some combative capabilities. But then we also get the, army version of them, which is the Rex Snow. And they're equipped with like a little bit more heavy artillery, more thrust capabilities, and more offensive capabilities overall. Still not a great design, but just want to show you that. Now we're going to get to some of the... Now, it's hard to say what site's good, because they're just like Gundam, no site is truly good and no site is truly bad. But Rico G doesn't make it very clear about who's right or who's wrong necessarily. There are some anti-American sentiments, what I can get from it at times too, but for the most part, there's no real good side. It's mostly like just staying neutral. But with our spacesuits, yeah, look at this monstrosity. Woo! Yeah, you see what I'm saying though? It looks very much, if you looked at my previous reviews or in the favorite suit section of those reviews, very reminiscent of some designs that you would see very similar to what's in Victory or F91, specifically head and then the arm designs. The torsos are unique to this series, but man, some ugly stuff. Let's get to another ugly one. Ugh. Well, you can't see it. I wish I can get this better, but like I don't want to zoom in. I don't want to mess up my little screen itself. But the chin portion looks like a Gundam chin. So when I was watching, this is Raria Monday's suit later on, 16 onward. I thought this thing would come off and it would become like a Gundam head, very similar to like the Gushin Gundam in or Gushin Gundam rebaked in Iron-Blooded Orphan. No, this is what the suit looks like, and it is ugly. Ugly, my god. All right. One more ugly suit before we get to some cool looking ones. I just gotta horrify you guys. Zax. Yeah, look at that thing. It's like a Saikamu Zaku mixed in with Crossbone Gundam, thrown in with some Zanskar Empire / Crossbone Vanguard designs. Yeah, Psycho Zaku, Crossbone Gundam, and then you got your Zanscar slash F or Crossbone Vanguard look. Ugly design, ugly suit. Yeah, man. I think this is guy right here, the Ipe Gyobu. I think he also did another mecha series. I can't remember. When I was looking up factoids for this series, his name had popped up a couple of times. I didn't realize he was the one that designed some of the uglier ones. Hey, someone out there is gonna find this one beautiful, but me, I just don't like the design. All right, how about some good suits? Suits that I liked, right? First one I want to talk about, and I mentioned it already, was the G Arcane. G Arcane was a pretty cool looking suit. In fact, it reminds me, I actually tried to look it up, but it's not exactly the same. Reminds me of like the GN Archer from Gundam 00. Just because the shielding, the back fins slash shielding reminds me of it. And the coloring a bit too. I'll bet the GN Archer is more red, and this is very orangish with light pink. Very cool design. I liked it. Unfortunately, as I mentioned about Aida, she's absolutely garbage as a sniper and doesn't fully utilize the G Arcane to its potential. In fact, I just feel like she just kind of stands there and really doesn't do anything, which is sad. But it's a cool design. I really like the design of the suit. The Montanero, which is the suit for Klimnik, if I'm saying his name correctly here. Really cool design. It reminds me a lot like almost, again, some 00 designs and definitely something from Zeta Gundam. The wings here, actually, if you can kind of see it here, they hold his swords or javelins. Puts them together and creates like these like beam sabers individually, like dual wielding, or a beam javelin which he throws. Pretty cool. Its flight capabilities are really nifty and neat. I like it, and it kind of has like a little bit of a knight-esque look to it, so like a flying knight. Neat design. There is a mass production version, which is more of a browner. Let me see if I can show you guys the mass production. It's not terrible. Oh, no, yeah, a little bit of browner, but it's just the green. Kind of like Zaku's. Zaku green. But nothing really matches up, and I'm saying her name correctly. It's Mick Jag. Her Heket suit is awesome. So this thing is a machine gun. You can't really tell because it doesn't really show, but this thing's like something straight out of Gears of War almost. Just not like a true Lancer rifle, right? But it's more like a machine gun, and then at the very end of this thing is actually a beam chainsaw. Really cool to watch this suit in action and how she utilizes it. Such a really awesome, cool design and fighting capabilities. Shame she just kind of chucks it away for the newer suits that they get at the end of the series, which, in my opinion, were garbage designs and garbage suits themselves. It might have gotten beaten up, but you know this was such a really neat suit. Now, just like every other series, it's almost hard not to talk about a Gundam series without talking about the Gundam. And I really like the G-Self. It's a very, really, really, really nice, sleek, smooth design for the most part. A lot of smooth textures, nothing really too sharp on it. The headpiece is very unique because the V, instead of like the traditional Gundam V, it's more like rabbit ears, almost kind of like a jackal or like a deer almost. The Core Fighter, we only see like a couple of times. Throw that away, I don't care for Core Fighter stuff. But what I really cared about was just the overall suit design. It looks really, really cool and neat. And I talked to you guys earlier about the fighting of this series, the action, and how it has a lot of backpacks. So I kind of want to just show you the backpacks. Spoilers, but not really a whole lot of spoilers behind them because some of them you don't ever see again. So I do mention that I like the G-Self, but there is one particular one I really do like, but we'll get to it. So like, for an example, we have the Atmosphere backpack, which it's funny enough, I do have a little Converge figurine of this one too. I love the design of it. It's funny, I say I love this one, yet I hate the Ale Strike. I secretly like it. Don't you tell anybody about that. I will disown all of you. No, but I actually do like the kind of design because it kind of gives it kind of like a fighter pilot look, almost like a jet with a Gundam. I'm gonna close that one out. Then we get the high torque pack, which I thought these were machine guns. They are not. It's just like extra verniers that launches the Gundam. It's okay, very gimmicky. We have the other one here, which is the tricky pack, which is weird. It's a weird functioning suit or functioning backpack. Again, gimmicky. The space backpack is basically the upgraded version of the atmosphere one. Space backpack actually is not that bad of a design. I actually kind of like it because it complements the original suit itself very, very well. We get to something that's going to be kind of... No, never mind. I thought it was the other one. We get the reflector pack, which was... Okay, now it's kind of funny. You notice that in the tricky backpack too, some of the backpacks changes the color of this suit, which is kind of weird. But the reflector one, it's alright. Again, gimmicky as well. Can't get any more gimmick than the assault backpack. This is the one we do see a lot frequently. Not frequently, but we do see it frequent a lot, alongside with the space backpack, atmosphere backpack a few times, I think. This thing's kind of gaudy looking and all that, but out of all the backpacks, can't say my favorite is not the perfect backpack. I think the only thing I don't like about the design of the perfect backpack is that it gives us like this little extra little padding on the shoulder and has this weird little like lightning or energy symbol on the shoulders. I think it could be done without it because it would look really, really nice overall, but I really like the perfect backpack. It gives a lot of character to the G-Self and its fighting and functioning capabilities. So if I'm going to say my favorite suit of this entire series, definitely is going to be the G-Self with the perfect backpack. If not, the G-Self by itself is a great looking suit. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and jump into our next segment here, which is I'm new to Gundam. Should I watch this series first? No. I'm just trying to give it a little bit of a delay there, but definitely no. If it wasn't already alluded enough in my review, maybe I'm too positive. I feel like I sounded too positive in it, at least. But definitely no. I would not recommend watching Rico G first as your first foray to the Gundam franchise. Kind of contradicts some of the things I've said in the past before, because some things I would always say is a good thing to watch when going into the Gundam franchise. It's like a one-off series or like self-contained series. Rico G is very self-contained. Yes, it makes references to Universal Century, and they make little knockbacks, but they don't play very pivotal or important towards the franchise, to the series itself, other than like alluding, oh yeah, our past was a bad past and stuff like that. We want to make a better future, that sort of thing. Really is not big of a deal. But why I'm saying no is for all the reasons I had mentioned why this series is already bad. It, again, doesn't set a good expectations or standards when going into the overall Gundam franchise. This series will set a very bad expectation for you. Again, the first half of the series is decently paced with action and a lot of intrigue and plot placed in there. And then the last 10 episodes throw most of that away, goes at neck break speeds. Even I, who's watched majority of the Gundam franchise multiple times, had an and this is, I mean, I can keep an eye on different factions and understand what's going on. I could not even keep up with the different factions, different motives, different operations of these factions in this series. That's how confusing it got at those last 10 episodes. Character motivations and actions blew my mind and go like, why are you doing this? What reason are you doing this for? Where did this come from? Those sort of things. A lot of things just did not make sense, and makes that last part of the series a difficult ride to get into. Made me not care at all, and I was just kind of like watching it at this point, like, all right, that's some fun fighting, that's some fun action, cool. Let's move along. I had lost most of my interest by like episode 20. If that gives you even context. Everything that the first 13 episodes build up to, give it a few episodes, and then when it shifts gears into episode 16 onward, you just end up throwing everything that was built up out of the window, and that doesn't set a good standard, doesn't set a good expectation when you're going to go watch another Gundam series after this. So definitely, no, this is not a series to pick up for your first Gundam. And as for the overall, Reconguista had a promising premise of a new future series within the Universal timeline, helmed by the legendary godfather of real robot, Yoshiyuki Tomino. While the series had some fantastic animation, mecha designs, and interesting fights, the convoluted plots, the nonsensical characters, their motivations, and the awkward pacing of the series absolutely ruins and destroys all potential going for this series. It's sad to say that if Tomino was trying to create a Turn A clone, he should have stuck with just keeping it at Turn A and not doing what was a redo or maybe a Reconguista of Turn A. Gundam Reconguista and G gets a mediocre, really so-so, you could pretty much pass, but if you have to, 2 out of 5. Now, I have to say, I didn't mention it earlier on too, with my first impressions of the series, I actually gave the series a 1 out of 5. Reconguista was very hard to watch past the 13th episode. Like, it got abysmally impossible. But if you were paying attention like I did the second time around, it was actually still an enjoyable watch with all the action and the fighting. As long as you turn your brain off and you start trying to make absolute reason about what's going on, who's good, who's bad, and why certain characters are doing certain things. If you just throw that all out the window and just watch it for the fights, it's a lot of fun. If you try to make sense of it, I promise you're going to be miserable like I was the first time around. And that was me not paying 100% attention. I'm goofing off, chatting with friends, playing games, and that sort of thing. So, definitely, I would say that I wouldn't recommend watching Reconguista. If you really want to watch it, go for it. I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but unless you're trying to do like, a timeline completion, right? It'd be part of the run. Now, if you haven't already, if you're watching this on Twitch, make sure to follow me on my Twitch account. If you're watching this on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought about my opinion on this series. What about what you thought about the series? Did you think I had a garbage opinion? Did you agree with me? Did you think that the G stuff looked awful? Did it look cool? What's your thoughts on this series? I want to hear from you guys. Leave a comment down below. That said, I do want to thank you all for sticking around and watching this episode of Nerdy Reviews. And until the next one, see you guys on the next review. Take care.